power of Mew V Max. Consistent draw with that Genesect and just high damage output with Cross Fusion Strike. And he finds himself sitting across from a West Coast local, Lee Bui, someone who is very known in this area. He does very solidly at these West Coast regionals. We see a slew of top 16s as well as a top 4 all the way back in 2018. I will say Lee's someone who's usually known for playing something a little unique, or he'll play a meta deck with a little bit of a twist, a little bit of his own personal flair thrown in there. But looking at this list this weekend, he's chosen to go with something very similar to what Andrew is playing. Straightforward, consistent, and powerful Mew V Max.
This is a mirror match. Not the same 60 cards, but very similar in the goals they're trying to achieve. And of course, the same engine. What does it come down to, Chip? What will give these players the edge in this mirror match where their concepts are the same?
Path to the Peak is going to be a big factor here. Both of these players playing multiple copies. Both of these players also playing multiple copies of Lost Vacuum. Very similar lists. Like you said, not quite the same 60, I don't believe, but honestly, Ethan, it is really close. And honestly, if we analyze this a little bit more, it looks like Lee Bui does have the Avery in there, which is something that Hedrick does not have. Hedrick has a second switch cart. Other than that, I think that's pretty close to what the difference is going to be.
Yes, Lee's playing a lot of interesting cards. I see that Fan of Waves in there, which can, in this matchup, put double turbo onto the bottom of the deck. Looking at the prize cards, nothing too relevant there. Andrew did have one of those Genesect prize, but I mean, it's not going to be too big of a deal. And here we are, getting started here. Top 8 cut, Masters Division, Fresno Regional Championships. We'll be interested to see who's going first, and it looks like Lee is starting things off, and this could be a big Cram-O-Matic flip. If this flips heads, this can find Battle Pass, and it's a tails.
Lee is yet to flip a heads on a Cram-O-Matic today. He's been on stream already once. He was up against the Darkrai player, and he flipped a bunch of tails in that game, and all he has is a Mew Double Turbo Choice Belt and a pass. Usually the player going first is going to be pretty advantaged in this mirror match, but Lee's turn 1 was not very strong.
And on Andrew's side, a few copies of that Forest Seal Stone, has the energy attachment already up and going, and an Ultra Ball. So this Ultra Ball most likely can find Genesect. Forest Seal Stone can be played down. You could even use this fusion system for one. The Choice Belt and Double Turbo Energy can be played down. And from there, Andrew's going to start the chain of Genesect Fusion Strike systems, playing Battle Pass. He'll get to peek through the deck, see what cards are unavailable. He'll quickly find out a lot of those cards are relevant. And this brings up another point, too, in terms of getting your attackers prepped. There's several ways I feel like Andrew could play this matchup through. There's, of course, the one-hit strategy. You do have enough damage modifiers. You're going to need 4 of them to take a knockout onto something like Mew V Max. It is possible. And then there's also the 2-2-2 strategy. Andrew, going second in this case, will be attacking second as long as Lee can find that Mew V Max and Genesect to copy. What do you think is best strategy to go to, or is it just extremely responsive to how Lee plays this matchup?
It's totally going to be responsive, and especially whenever Lee started the way he did. Andrew knows that he's got a little bit of leeway. Lee's turn was not super strong, so if he can just value his setup, he's taking a moment here to check his prize cards. If he can just get set up, react to what Lee does next turn. If Lee takes a one-hit knockout on a 2-prize Pokemon, then Andrew knows, okay, maybe I have to dig really hard for that massive one-hit KO on a Mew VMAX and try to slow my opponent down, stick a Path to the Peak, and play something along those lines.
Will be the Genesect grabbed off of the Ultra Ball, and that Forest Seal Stone is there. Now remember, because of the change in Scarlet and Violet, Cryptomatic cannot discard this Choice Belt from the hand. And interestingly enough, Andrew's going to make a play here that maybe seems a little bit weird, but I think on Andrew's play, going to give away less information. Use this Forest Seal Stone first.
No, I think this is definitely his best play. He can almost play the entire hand down and throw it down a Battle VIP pass, draw a bunch of cards. This is what he needs to do. He's got a Choice Belt Double Turbo that he can throw onto this benched Mew V, and we're going to start to see some Fusion Strike systems filling up this hand. That's really kind of, you love to be able to save Forest Seal Stone in this deck if you can, but it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you have to use it to value your setup in the early game, which is exactly how Andrew had to map out this opening turn.
Yeah, there was a potential to draw one card off Fusion System, and through that one card, you can potentially find Battle Pass and then save it for later, but Andrew wants to maximize
get as many cards as possible.
And I think this makes more sense, actually, because there is a Genesect in the prize cards, so you get essentially one less Fusion System on your turn, so you've got to make the most of what you've got, and great cards found there off of that. Finds Nest Ball that can get the third Genesect V into play. Cram-O-Matic could even get rid of the Ultra Ball, potentially, and that is actually going to be Sure, the Nest Ball gets played for sure. That's definitely a certainty. What do you think this gets? Another Genesect, or are we putting a third Mew into play?
Yeah, I think getting another Genesect here is good, especially with one being prized. You really want to use your Nest Balls to get down Genesect V, because that's a little harder to find in the late game. You pretty much only have Nest Ball to find them, whereas Mew V can be found by something like Feather Ball later on.
So the Genesect put to the top of the deck. Looks like it will be the selection off Nest Ball. Still has access to the remaining 2 Fusion Strike systems. I feel like Path to the Peak, though, especially when your opponent had a slow start.
Yeah,
could be the last card Andrew's looking for. Does have Chromatic, but I think it's actually, wow, an interesting resource that could be solid in this matchup. Pal Pad going away and flipping tails.
Pal Pad really is not the strongest in this matchup. It comes up the most in the Mew Mirror whenever you have to Ultra Ball away some boss early on, but Andrew hasn't had to do that yet. It's definitely better than getting rid of Ultra Ball in this spot because he wants to guarantee Ultra Ball can get him the Mew VMAX he needs next turn. So losing the Pal Pad, while it is a solid resource, this is a matchup where you're going so quick. The game is only going to last a few turns, regardless of whether or not you're the one who is the winner. Pal Pad is just a little bit less valuable. And hey, how about this draw? Does find another Nest Ball, Path to the Peak, and also has Judge he could play on this opening turn. But with the way Lee started, is Judge even worth playing down?
That's the question. Again, Lee going first, unable to play a supporter card. So do you think your opponent's holding on to something like Judge? Would they really have that in hand besides everything else? Did find Nest Ball, so this will grab Mew V. It is the only other option, and of course, you want to fill your bench up to be as full as possible. Maximize Fusion Strike system. It is the backbone of this deck. The draw engine for this deck, it will be the selection there off Nest Ball.
Seems solid. Bring that down, and we can see one more Fusion Strike system come out this turn. Interested to see if that Judge plus Path gets played. I think it is good that Andrew does already have the Path to the Peak in the hand. That is going to be something he certainly wants to play down to close out this turn. The one thing he's really looking for is a Lost Vacuum on the to be able to play on the other end of this turn. And
finds it.
First card, what do you know?
Wow.
I think the last question here for Andrew is, do you retreat this Mew into a Genesect? Do you leave it to be a Mew V? And I think ultimately, with a Genesect being prized, losing a Mew V is overall okay.
So Path to the Peak coming down into play. It is always risky if your opponent plays Judge against you, then your path goes back in. As Battle Pass the next card, and Lee's going to say, come on, why
can I please play this? No,
it's not first turn. Here's another big flip. It is heads.
Lee Bui finally hits a heads on a Cram-O-Matic. Let's get a round of applause for that. Getting what he needs to do to try to make something happen here. And it looks like it's going to be just a Genesect grab off of this Cram-O-Matic, and I do believe he is holding on to Judge. So going to be relying on the 4 cards he gets off Judge to make something happen this turn. Good news for him, though. All he needs is a Mew VMAX, and he'll have what he needs to get attacking here.
I think with Genesect, it feels sort of counterintuitive because you have less ways to search out something like Lost Vacuum. But honestly, if Lee just benches Genesect, evolves to VMAX, plays the Judge, and knocks out, it's like reversing Andrew's plan, because now the Path to Peak, which Andrew had the guaranteed out to, essentially is now being used against him. This is sort of the full circle thing we've seen with Mew, of this deck despising Path, not wanting anything to do with it, not going near it at all. It's sort of embraced it as its own in this deck, as there we see Genesect get grabbed, Judge be played. These are going to be big 4 cards for Andrew, but also for Lee. Can he get more Genesects down? Can he have player's Fusion Strike system abilities?
Yeah, so this is looking really solid for Lee. Going to come down to what Andrew draws on this end, and I think Lee is probably not going to go for Fusion Strike System this turn unless off this Judge he finds specifically Lost Vacuum and Path to the Peak, so he can replace the Stadium once again. And that is something Lee definitely wants to make sure is in play at the end of this turn, is a Path to the Peak.
4 cards for each of these players shuffling up, enjoying Judge while it lasts. It will definitely not see as much play after this tournament when Iono comes out.
I think Mew decks are probably still going to play it, though, right?
I think some decks will. I think Mew, Arceus for sure. I think Arceus will still want to Path Judge. I mean, the Path Judge decks are still going to exist,
of course,
to an extent. But
that's the whole strength of them. Even though Iono does make your opponent put the cards on the bottom, they get 6 cards to work with. So I think this last card in hand for Lee is that Lost Vacuum, and he's debating, do I go for this? Ultimately decides to do it, and now does not leave a Path to the Peak in play this turn. Has Lost City he could play down. I think you want to keep that as a bump for your opponent's Path to the Peak next turn. Overall, this is still a solid position. You're being the one taking the first KO, but only 1 Genesect to work with.
One Fusion Strike system available. See the hand for Andrew. I mean, it really wasn't that great if Path had stuck in play. May have been reliant off of Cram-O-Matic to flip heads. UV comes up, and it feels like we're caster cursing this match so far here. Did find Lost Vacuum off the top.
Lee just knew exactly what was happening. Andrew's just going to top deck the card he needs anyway, so let's get rid of that Path.
2 Ultra Ball in the hand. I was a little thrown off. He is playing different arts of the Ultra Ball. There's that.
I think he's playing different arts of everything. I think all his Judge are different. I think all his Ultra Ball are different.
Listen, if it gets you to go 12-0 at a regional, I'm not going to hate on him.
That's the secret, apparently.
So the choices here, what do you discard? Not needing that Lost Vacuum anymore. Gonna play the Cram-O-Matic potentially. I think you could honestly leave the Cram-O-Matic and Ultra Ball in your hand, but honestly, having Path around is still good. You're going to want to just Path your opponent every turn in this mirror match, it seems, so give yourself that option. Cram-O-Matic can get rid of Lost Vacuum. All it's really doing is acting as an Ultra Ball in the way of thinning the hand out, and it does flip heads. So big choice here for Andrew. Already has Ultra Ball in hand. That could guarantee the Mew VMAX. Do we see an aggressive Boss's Orders route? I feel like with one Genesect in play, it's a good route to go for.
Yeah, recognizing your opponent has just that one way to draw cards, and also that's the only real solid Pokemon to copy an attack of, right? If all your opponent has in play is Mew VMAX and Mew V, their only options are Max Miracle or Psychic Leap. So taking out this Genesect seems really good, and it's going to be on Lei to respond and find a Nest Ball, a Genesect, some way to get more Pokemon in play.
The selection is that Boss's Orders. Play that. Bring up Genesect on the bench.
Smart play.
Does have the guaranteed new VMAX with Ultra Ball first Fusion Strike system. Doesn't find something too relevant. I think keeping Power Tablet around is a good idea. Just in case you can't find Boss's Orders, you could go for a play where you disrupt the hand with something like Roxanne and then play 4 Power Tablet or 3 Power Tablet and a Choice Belt. So that could be the angle for Andrew in this position. But it is, yeah, really I think just valuing Power Tablet, it seems. Getting rid of Ultra Ball and the Switch cart that was drawn. Finding Mew VMAX. I mean, you could even get risky here and grab another benched Pokemon, but I think Andrew understands that sometimes with this Mew VMAX deck, you're like, yeah, I've got so many great outs, and you draw into like Boss's Orders, Battle Pass, and you're like, I can't play any of these cards. I can't thin down anymore.
Oftentimes, the Pokemon TCG becomes a game of who is the most careful, and I think that Andrew is making the careful but also correct play in this spot. Off of that Fusion Strike system, didn't draw too much that he can play, just the Path to the Peak and then the Power Tablets, so it might not be the full effect. Fusion Strike system might not get to use that third one. Overall, still going to be fine with this board's position. The question is it worth putting down this Path to the Peak? It is really strong, but Andrew is leaving himself with no way to bump it currently.
Responding here, taking 2 prize cards, evening things up with Libui. It was a top deck, big find in the Lost Vacuum. Did have the counter stadium, but the issue with this hand is there is nothing going on. Can't play the Roxanne, can't play something like the Lost Vacuum for a lot of value if you already have the counter stadium. Sure, Power Tablet's great, but not in this position where you've only got one. And Lee may be forced to, as you said, copy something like Max Miracle, essentially evening things up here for Andrew.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're going to do. There's really not any great playable cards. No reason to bump the stadium if you're not going to be using any abilities, so force Andrew to have the response. It will just be Cross Fusion Strike, copying that Max Miracle, 110 damage thanks to the damage reduction necessary from that double turbo energy. The draw for turn from Andrew Hedrick is a Judge. Already had one in hand. Is this the turn, Ethan? Are we going to see him push for the 4 damage modifiers to try to take a 1-hit knockout on a Mew VMAX?
I think it might be. It was a big find there for Lee to also get the second Mew VMAX down into play. That means something like Escape Rope now denies something like 2 prize cards taken with Mew VMAX. We did see that Switch cart get discarded.
He does play 2 copies.
Oh, is playing 2 copies. So usually we see 2 Escape Rope and 1 Switch cart, but could be looking for the Switch cart potentially with the 2 Power Tablet. That will bring this up to 3 modifiers. There weren't any in the prize card, so and Andrew in this position, you've got to think to yourself, am I going to go for this? There is the Boss's Orders in hand, but the problem is no way to pivot out. Technoblast preventing you from attacking. The following turn, you need to switch to negate that effect. And it is just going to be the Judge. Could have maybe used Fusion System, drawn a few cards, and maybe seen if you found something like Escape Rope or the Switch cart to boss up and pretty much put yourself 1 knockout away. But Andrew's already playing these Power Tablets, so committing to trying to get a 1-hit knockout this turn. 4 cards, plus 3 Fusion Strike systems. Also putting Lee down.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you don't really feel great judging your opponent in this spot because they didn't really do anything on the previous turn.
I think Andrew's best chance here to get this knockout is going to be playing all 4 power tablets. We only see 2 being played right now. If he can play all 4 and then evolve this Mew V on the bench into a Mew V Max, bring that up into the active, that's going to be his best path in order to take a knockout this turn.
4 power tablets with the bench or 3 power tablets in the choice belt on the active. Both of those will work out well. Great finds there.
With the active, though, he has to find a way to switch, right?
So
he needs
one
to switch
or other,
cards.
right?
So there's several different paths here. He has options, and that's one of the things about this deck is you're able to kind of play things out and just see what develops for you. Looks like Andrew does have Ultra Ball in hand.
I think just debating, do I want to keep the boss's orders around for later, or do I want to keep this Lost Vacuum? I think at this point, you go aggressive. You've still got another boss left in your deck.
Yeah.
You are playing 3 copies. So I think you kind of just keep the Lost Vacuum around. It just allows you to thin a little bit more. If you miss this knockout, you're
looks like he changed his mind,
not
actually.
in a great place. But
he's really debating this,
yeah.
debating getting rid of Lost Vacuum or Boss's Orders. And both cards are so powerful.
Remember, Palpad is gone, right? So there's no way to shuffle Boss back in. So Andrew's going to be reliant off 1 more Boss's Orders for the rest of the game. Can grab Mew V out of the deck. That will allow Fusion Strike System to draw 5 additional cards, filling the hand up to 6 instead of 5.
Could also guarantee the VMAX here, and that's kind of, I think, what Andrew's going to debate. Is it worth it for me to try to draw more cards, or do I want to guarantee that I have this VMAX? I do believe Andrew still has his 1 Feather Ball in the prize cards, and this is, I think, his 3rd, maybe 4th Ultra Ball even being played. So he could possibly have a hard time finding this next VMAX.
Back and forth debate. What do you go for? I think personally I like just drawing more cards. You've still got Chromatics in your deck. You can still draw into one of those Mew VMAX.
And you could even draw a switch card, right? Which means you don't even need another VMAX.
Yeah, I think attacking with the fresh one, like you said, if you find the power tablets, is just better because you, again, force your opponent to also have the Gusting card next turn. So I think what you said was good. There it is. Finds the Mew VMAX, finds Power Tablet. So that means if this active can find a way to retreat to the bench and come back, you see Lee giving a thumbs up to the camera, showing off. And here's a few copies of that Lost Vacuum. Can get rid of, I feel like, this double Turbo Energy. That's fine to go away. You can keep the boss's orders. You can't afford to get rid of that. And you've got 1 more Lost Vacuum. There are 2 targets to get rid of in this case. We'll see this first one get rid of the Choice Belt for sure.
Yeah, almost definitely getting rid of the Choice Belt on Lee's side. And Andrew does choose to get rid of that double turbo, which is totally fine in this spot. I see so many Mew VMAX players really overvaluing and holding on to those double turbo energies, but sometimes they're just okay to throw away. And what do you know, Ethan? Andrew was able to find that switch card. That's going to guarantee a 1-hit knockout on this Mew VMAX this turn.
Also has Chromatic, so could even play the Chromatic. Power Tablet's really not doing anything at this point as a 1 of in your deck, so I still think, like you said, if you can attack with this fresh Mew VMAX, it's like you're forcing Boss out again. And flips head, finds it. This can get the 4th Power Tablet. All 4 are found. Even the Choice Belt on the bench works just as well, since it is a one-time modifier use. As long as it's attached, you can save the Power Tablet for later. I mean, Andrew doesn't know if there's any surprises like Oricorio that can come down, right? To
also, Power Tablet's a card that you can use Chromatic on later on in the game as well, so keeping an item card around is a little better than keeping the tool card around.
Last Fusion Strike System, and look at that, to add insult onto injury, has Path to Peak for the next turn. Remember, Lost City was played this turn, so it feels like it's been ages since we saw everything happen, but I may have grown a few years at this point, but there we go. 3 Power Tablet plus Choice Belt plus 120 damage, exact math, taking the knockout. Andrew Hendrick, a 3 prize turn. Mew in the Lost Zone's not too relevant, but those 3 prize cards for Andrew, those are.
So this is tough for Lee. I mean, I think your best play is if you could somehow, like having the best possible scenario here, I think, for Lee, is just have 2 Mew VMAX in play, and that's it. And Boss's Orders, play a bunch of Power Tablets, and 1-hit KO a VMAX on the bench, or a V. It doesn't really matter at this point which one you KO, but that is so much to ask for when you just got judged last turn. You have no Genesect to draw a bunch of cards. The problem with benching Genesect now is that becomes an easy win condition for Andrew on the next turn. But it might be what he has to do. Let's see what happens.
I mean, has Boss's Orders in hand, so did find that copy. Can play Boss's Orders, bring up one of these Pokemon. I feel like targeting Genesect down is probably your best bet since you shut off that engine. I mean, the Mew having damage on it doesn't really act as much in this case. It's still just there in this situation. Does also have double Turbo Energy, so can go in and out with both of these Pokemon. I feel like that's what you got to do in this position.
Debating what to go through with here. bringing that boss to the front of the hand. There's really not many other plays available.
Oh, but the problem that we keep forgetting about is you can't copy Technoblast since there's no Genesect in play for Lee.
Yeah, it's just going to have to be the Max Miracle. So he would have had, like I said, needed to have multiple power tablets in hand. Looks like he only had one available. So it's going to be a little bit of a stall play, potentially. And Andrew is down a few cards here. A couple switch card. We know that a double turbo energy just got lost zoned last turn. That's a way you could typically retreat this Genesect. It is still possible for Andrew to get the win here. He does have Echoing Horn in the deck, or in his list at least. Whether or not it's in the deck, I'm not sure. A switch cart was held onto last turn, let's remember, as well, because Andrew was able to find the Choice Belt to retreat into the fresh one.
So at minimum, Andrew will be able to attack into this Mew VMAX.
Echoing Horn, there it is.
There's only 7 cards in the deck, so and some of those are actually thinnable. There's, I think, half of the deck can be played. Double Turbo Energy, Lost Vacuum can be played. I'm trying to see this hand. I think there is like a Lost Vacuum, and of course you can't play the boss's orders until you play the Echoing Horn first to put that Pokemon back onto the bench from the discard pile.
I think Andrew can draw a card or two here, potentially. Has the switch card, has Path to the Peak, could replace the Lost City with the Path to the Peak, and then use the Lost Vacuum in hand in order to thin another card out. But even at that point, there's just so many cards in his hand. I think he would only draw one card. We'll see how it plays out.
How many cards in hand for Andrew? That's the question. Looks like 7 cards. You can go to 5, or I think he can draw 2 cards here. If he plays the Path to the Peak down, oh no,
it's just one. It is just one.
Do you go for this? Do you get rid of that resource? And I think for Andrew, he's already got the boss's orders in hand, so it's just going to be copying Technoblast, putting the damage on this Mew, and if there's no hand disruption, this will lock up the game here for Andrew.
Let's see what the draw for turn is for Lee. Needs some help on the top deck. It is the Forest Sealstone. I mean, that's not bad. And that could lead to a Roxanne here, potentially. And that's a way you can get a bunch of cards in your hand without Genesect being in play. Okay, hold on here a second, Ethan. If Lee could also find off of the Roxanne an Escape Rope and some modifiers, maybe you can Max Miracle for enough damage. There's a path here, potentially.
We never really see Mew VMAX use the Forest Sealstone, but got no better option at this point. Roxanne, the choice, it seems, for Lee.
I think that has to be your play. There is maybe an argument for Lee, knowing that Andrew has so many cards in hand, knowing he wasn't able to thin down last turn. Maybe you make him have it right in that big hand, but Lee knows that Andrew has a boss hanging around somewhere, right? Knows that there should be at least one more, unless Andrew is only playing 2 copies, which is pretty rare. So I think Lee, recognizing this is his best play, his best chance. Roxanne down to 2. This is going to be a close one, Ethan. It is still possible for Lee to find a way back into this one.
No better comeback combination in the game than Roxanne and Path to the Peak. Usually have a little bit of wiggle room to dig through your deck with those Genesects, but it may be reliant off of Lee finding a copy of Path to the Peak to shut off Fusion Strike system, try and buy some time back. But we never really see this in the Mew VMAX mirror. There is so much damage on Andrew's Pokemon that has not led to knockouts. It feels like wasted attacks. Let's see these 6 cards here for Lee. Does have Genesect if that is a choice to bench it, and finds the Path to the Peak.
Yeah, but did not find the Escape Rope. I think that's the main thing he really would have loved to have seen here. It will be Genesect coming down, it looks like.
I feel like
so now
this,
can't play to the route of trying to leave no Genesect in play. We're just going to try to draw a bunch of cards and hope that the Roxanne stuck Andrew with not much. And now Lee could pull the same play off that Andrew pulled off on him. 4 damage modifiers, gets the KO on this active VMAX. Can he pull it off?
That is the question. At this point, with the Mew VMAX already having damage on it, that play of leaving both of them in play doesn't really make a lot of sense because boss will win the game regardless. So
yeah, of course,
we are going to see Genesect finally come down into play now. So here we go. 2 damage modifiers. There is that Path to the Peak still in the hand. 3 cards drawn off this Fusion Strike system. What you got for us, Lee? What can you show us? Double Turbo Energy. That, I believe, can still be played down. Nest Ball can grab another Genesect. I believe there's still 1 in the deck, which there is. But here we go. Lee building the hand up. Still needs to find those power tablets, though.
Yeah, it's still needing a tablet and a choice belt, ideally. 1 tablet, 1 choice belt, or just 2 tablets. Any of these combination will get him there. Also could find the Escape Rope. That would also be another out to at least take 2 prizes of this turn. At this point in the game, Lee doesn't really care about the difference between 2 and 3 prizes, right? He needs to attack twice to get a knockout anyway.
Echoing Horn and Lost Vacuum. Can play Lost Vacuum and get rid of the Choice Belt on one of these Mew VMAX. I feel like the bench one's probably just a little bit better since you may as well go for the knockout here. However, if you're really looking for Escape Rope, the Mew VMAX on the bench might be the best Pokemon to bring up. It's going to be the Choice Belt on the bench.
Yeah, and this is a small thing for Lee. Let's see what he draws here. Does not quite get what he needs. If there's that fourth Genesect, no, one Genesect got knocked out, didn't it? So there's not going to be a fourth Genesect to keep drawing here. Kind of a small thing for Lee. I guess he did use a bunch of Cram-O-Matics already this game. He did choose to Lost Vacuum away Battle VIP Pass as opposed to the double Turbo Energy in his hand. He's already attached for turn. He couldn't have played that double Turbo down. So maybe there's an argument to get rid of the double Turbo Energy so that if you draw Cram-O-Matic, that Battle VIP Pass becomes a card that you can discard to try to find what you need. But if we remember back to turn one, Lee did play, I think, three Cram-O-Matics on that opening turn, so he might not even have one available, in which case double Turbo is definitely more valuable still.
Sometimes totally useless cards can find their use anyways.
Here we go.
Here we go. Path to Peak in play. Getting rid of Lost City. Retreating into Mew VMAX, but again, it's just more damage on the board that's not leading to prize cards for Lee. Sure, down the line it will, but it's more time for Andrew to navigate through. It means two of these Mew VMAX, even at minimum, if Andrew just attacks this turn, right? Now both Mew VMAX in play are going to have damage. Let's see. Andrew still has Boss's Orders in deck. Can he find it? There's not a lot going on in this hand. Can still retreat into Mew VMAX, copy Technoblast, save this double Turbo Energy, potentially just in case there's some sort of a stall play.
Just do as much damage as possible. That's what Andrew has to do here. Now Lee needs to try to set up this third Mew V on the bench. Make that become a Mew VMAX. Find another double Turbo Energy, which he did hold on to. Now we'll attach that for turn. Can he find the third VMAX? It's not too often you see 3 VMAXs coming out and being a factor. It does look like, though, his own Path to the Peak forcing him to play Judge this turn. That's his only option if he wants to draw some cards, which will replenish Andrew Hedrick's hand.
Giving Andrew another shot to find something like Boss's Orders next turn. He's already used Forest Seal Stone, so it's going to be very reliant off of potentially getting rid of this Path to Peak. Lee still has one of those Lost Vacuum prized, and we saw it, the other Lost Vacuum for Lee is, of course, playing 4 copies of that just to have it, to be able to thin this out, or 3 copies, actually, for Lee, not playing 4 copies of Lost Vacuum. Just playing it for the sole purpose of thinning a card out of the hand, drawing more off Fusion System. Maybe would have loved to have that card here to draw some more cards instead of giving Andrew more cards to work with on this turn. Lee's got to find a way to get this Mew VMAX established. Is playing the 3 copies. It is still available. Does find the Fan of Waves.
That actually could be relevant
double
here.
Turbo on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, get rid of this guy right here. Well, not that guy, but this guy.
Doesn't pick a Pokemon up. That would be too broken. That would be too good. There it is. Fan of Waves. Card we have not seen in a while, released all the way back in Battle Styles. Putting this onto the bottom of the deck. And we will just see Power Tablet get played. And there's the knockout. So Andrew has just got to find a double Turbo Energy. Was not able to find Path to the Peak to be removed. And look at that.
Vacuum.
Found Lost Vacuum. I think there's enough cards here for Andrew to dig through this deck. Let's see what he's got. UV comes into the active spot. What can be played from this hand? The Forest Seal can be played. I can't play the Path, though.
No.
And Fusion System can only build up to 5, so we'll be able to draw 3 cards here off Fusion Strike System.
Can attach that Forest Seal Stone as well. So we'll be able to draw a little bit. Echoing Horn unable to be played as Lee's bench is totally full. Only needs a double Turbo Energy here to close the game out. Doesn't find it just yet. Can still thin and dig a bit more. Escape Rope able to be played, as well as this Power Tablet thinned out from the hand. The damage modification not really mattering at this point.
And let's remember that double Turbo Energy, one of those 2 are on the bottom of the deck.
That's right,
so
and the deck has not been shuffled.
It hasn't. Can play Escape Rope. Doesn't matter what Pokemon comes out, it will be knocked out by 190, now 220 damage here. Let's see. Genesect, 2 cards.
There it is.
The double Turbo Energy that can knock out Mew V. And in a back and forth game 1, Andrew Hendrick comes out victorious.
What a game, what a match. Andrew Hedrick going second in this mirror match, where going first is usually so vital for your strategy to find success. Lee just could not quite get it going on turn number 1. Andrew was able to be the first one to be a true aggressor in this game, and that leads to him eventually getting the victory. Lee almost found a way to fight back after such a bad start, but Andrew Hedrick is able to hang on and go up 1-0 here in top 8.
Shows how back and forth this can truly be. It's not just who wins the coin flip, it's not who takes the first knockout. That's when both decks are playing a disruptive element in path, but again, it disrupts yourself. If it stays in play, you saw how it hurt both players. It hurt Andrew, but I'd say Lee was maybe more of somebody who got the back end of the foot there. Got shut down by the path a lot. Also didn't get Genesect out. We have to remember, Lee didn't play anything like Battle Pass on turn 1. Didn't play anything like Nest Ball to get things set up. We're progressing through this top 8 right now. Some updates from some other top 8 matches coming in. Reagan Retzlaff, another chance to potentially win a major event. Winning 2-1, advancing into top 4.
Taking down, yeah,
against that Aerodactyl Arceus deck. So maybe some coin flip luck was on his side. And some other updates right now. Chris tied 1-1 right now. Caleb Gedimer up 1-0 over the rogue hero in this top cut, Darkrai V-Star. You know, I'm gonna say it. I'm biased towards Darkrai doing well, but it's a tough matchup up against Lost. So.
Yeah, big shout outs to David regardless, playing a rogue deck and making it all the way to the top 8. But Caleb Gedimer, as you mentioned, is up 1-0 right now. It does also look like Cal and Chris are currently tied at 1-1. So that game loss in top 8, not stopping Cal at this point, was able to win effectively game number 2. They're going into that game 3 as we speak. We're just wrapping up game number 1 here on our stream match. Looks like we're the ones lagging behind here. We'll see, though, if this Mew VMAX high-octane matchup can result in some fireworks and result in our first player to make it to the top 4.
Great storylines indeed. Will it be the local player, Lee Bowie? And we actually just got confirmation. Caleb Gedimer advancing to top 4 with Lost Zone. So Darkrai is slain for the time being. It's not going to be advancing. But listen, when a deck like this makes it into top 8, more eyes are on it. We could even see more Darkrai innovation coming through for the future of the Pokemon TCG.
And we did at least get to feature it on the stream earlier on today. So that was great to see in action, seeing David really show up and show his very unique build of the deck and how he's built it to be so consistent and so powerful. But this tournament really is becoming all about Mew VMAX, it feels like, with these 2 players here in our top 8. And we'll see which one of them can move on to the top 4. In this game number 2, Lee will almost definitely be going first, similar to game 1, and he's just hoping for a little bit better of a setup as what he had previously.
See the prize cards for both players. 2 of those Forest Seal Stone in the prize cards. Now, I believe Andrew Hendrick is playing 3 copies of that, and there are 3 in the list for both of these players, it seems. Or actually, no, Lee's only playing 2. So, I mean, we sort of looked at this and on paper, we're like, yeah, this looks pretty similar, but lots of interesting cards. I think that Fan of Waves we saw at the end of game 1, I mean, it was close to almost winning Lee the game.
It really could have made a difference.
It seems like sort of an ultra combo. Usually it's Roxanne plus Path, but then you can Roxanne plus Path plus Fan of Waves and make it really hard for your opponent. Let's see prize cards for Lee. It is a power tablet for both of these players and 2 copies of the Lost Vacuum. Uh-oh, is something going on between these players here?
Yeah, it looks like we're having a discussion with the judges here with our players, try to figure out what's being sorted out. But yeah, a power tablet being played, prize for both of these players means we're not going to be seeing, or it's going to be a little harder at least to see these players go for that big one-hit KO on Mew VMAX. Means you're going to need to play all 3 tablets plus a choice belt all at once. That Fan of Waves being in Lee's prizes as well means that he's not going to have access to that powerful Roxanne Path play that we saw from him in game number 1.
So we're just confirming something between judges and the players. Make sure everybody is up to date. Something about player history, so we'll make sure we get everything sorted and figured out. Looks like something may have been revealed on a draw. Hate to see it in top 8, man, when the stakes are so high back and forth, but it's part of Pokemon. It's part of what can happen.
Yeah, it looks like a discussion is still being had. Apparently, Lee saw one of his prize cards, potentially maybe a card getting flipped over as he was setting the cards out, something along those lines. Yeah, it looks like we are having a judge shuffle happening with the prize cards.
We'll figure out how this plays out technically. Looks like prizes will be reset out. We'll see if any appropriate game adjusting penalties are made. This is top 8, right? Stakes are high and there's not a lot of room for error in terms of playing, but I'm just hoping to see a good rest of the set, or good rest of these, hopefully 2 games potentially, should make it through this Mew VMAX mirror match.
Yeah, and Lee just said, I figured, yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be a 2 prize penalty. So Andrew is going to need to take 2 less prizes. We'll get total confirmation, but Extra card gets revealed on the stream, and just in a TCG match in general, that is usually going to be the result, a 2 prize penalty, a double prize penalty. Lee does start off much better here in game number 1, however, or sorry, game number 2 than he did in game number 1. Battle VIP passed down a few more basic Pokemon.
It's what you're looking for on turn 1. Strongest Pokemon search in the format, but can only be played in the first turn of the game. Battle VIP pass, searching out Genesect and Mew V, making sure both of those are in play. And of course, the backbone draw engine, Genesect V, also coming down. So for Lee, the roadmap is very simple on this first turn. Get things down to the play. Well, I don't know how simple it is when your hand is clogged with Path to the Peak. Do you play that down and try and disrupt your opponent? It's just going to be passing the turn back over. What does Andrew have access to? At least a Battle Pass, but he may be having to flip Chrematic here to try and find some more.
And it looks like the best card for him to get rid of is a Power Tablet. That's going to cut him off of that Mew VMAX one-hit KO, but this maybe is also Andrew recognizing the situation. He's starting off this game number 2 with a huge advantage. He needs to take 2 less prizes to win this game. And if that's the case, Power Tablet becomes a lot less impactful. You have time to go for just boss KO, boss KO.
Flips heads on that Chrematic. That means another Battle VIP pass can be found, filling the bench up to 4 Pokemon. Has Lost Vacuum in hand, has Path to the Peak. There are so many options for Andrew if he wants to play this aggressive and try and draw more cards off Fusion System. What do you think, Chip? Should he play aggressive here, or should he just try and let the path stick and slow Lee down, especially when he has to take 2 less prizes in this game?
Yeah, I don't hate the aggression. I think more so than keeping Path to the Peak around, I would value keeping Lost Vacuums around in this spot so that you're as least likely as possible to get stuck off of Lee's own Path to the Peaks incoming. And the thing about this as well for Andrew is he never has to play into Roxanne at any point in this game. If he takes 2 prizes on a Genesect, he's at 4 remaining. Lee cannot Roxanne. And then on the next turn, Andrew can try to just KO a Genesect, take 2 prizes, and then he wins the game since he needs to take 2 less to win.
So looking through the deck, making sure Andrew has an understanding of what cards are available, what cards are locked away in the prize cards. Genesect and Mew, it seems, the grabs. Make sure you grab that Battle VIP pass first off of Chrematic. It will be 2 Genesect coming into play, and that second Battle Pass will most likely grab 2 Mew V. So a good mix of everything. You want to make sure you have at least 2 Mew down so that if one gets knocked out, you can power the other one up.
Yep, exactly. Going for just 1 Mew V is very risky when your opponent went first, as if you only have 1 in play and they can find the combination of Boss's Orders, Double Turbo, and Mew VMAX, you're all of a sudden going to be a little too far behind on the attacking front. So Andrew wisely sticking things around as they should be, getting a couple Mew V into play, and now with this switch card being played, it looks like a Fusion Strike System incoming for 2 cards. Has just about everything he wants this turn. I think the last piece he'd like to see is maybe a Double Turbo Energy, and he now, off this draw, does have the option to play a Judge if he wishes.
Does also have the guaranteed Lost Vacuum in hand. Your opponent didn't really do much besides playing the Battle Pass. I mean, Andrew could even just not play Path. He understands that, listen, I'm already on the, essentially, I already have 2 more prizes than my opponent. I'm more so not looking to slow my opponent down. I need them to try and slow me down. So maybe that's the route Andrew wants to go for, of just saying, you know what, Path is not my game plan to slow you down. It's more so I want to get rid of Path, and that is actually going to be the choice. Ultra Balling it away, valuing drawing more cards off Fusion System this turn.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to see, and I wonder if this will be a 4th Genesect, or will it be Mew V to play it safe? Looks like Mew V is ultimately going to be that decision. Now a full bench, a full board for Andrew Hedrick, ready to Fusion Strike System up to 6 cards.
So 3 Mew V hitting the bench. Will be a second Fusion Strike System for 3 cards, it seems, filling the hand up to 6. I mean, what more could you want here for Andrew on turn 1? You've got plenty of options to work with. Finds a Judge. I mean, you can still play that card, but again, it comes down to the fact of, like, what else do you need, right? You might as well save that and the Lost Vacuums if your opponent keeps you with your hand, and if not, well, you're going to get 4 cards anyways, right? Might as well just get them and have the Judge to play as well.
I think the one thing he would like to see is an energy attachment this turn, but you don't even need it because this is a deck that just needs 1 attachment on the turn you're going to attack. So Andrew might just be content holding on to the hand, passing it over to Lee. Doesn't want to judge when his opponent didn't do much, and also does not want to judge when he's holding on to Lost Vacuum, as that is going to be his main response to his opponent's potential Path to the Peak this turn.
So it will just be the pass over. Lee was holding on to Judge, so decision being made essentially for Andrew. If you're not going to judge, I'm going to do it to you. Both players shuffling in, drawing 4 cards. I mean, the Genesect's in the active spot. can, of course, pivot out. I mean, is it as simple as Lee just looking for an attack, or is there more that he wants to find this turn?
Yeah, just as simple as getting off the attack. I mean, maybe getting a Lost Vacuum hit, getting rid of this Choice Belt on this Mew V on the bench could be nice, but at that point, the main thing you're looking for is just an attack. A Path to the Peak is well in play, could obviously be very, very strong, but at a minimum, let's get off an attack, and Switch Card is a good way to start things off. That is a piece he's going to need of the puzzle.
Double Nest Ball as well. That means this bench can be filled up to 5 Pokemon, maximizing Fusion Strike system. We'll see what he can draw off of this. There is still, of course, the copies of Path to the Peak in play. Is playing 3 of those. Only got 3 copies of Lost Vacuum. And again, we keep talking about it's always a risk to put Path in play when you, at least in your hand, don't have a guaranteed way to remove it to put Fusion Strike system back online the following turn.
Lee does also have Cramomatic in this hand, so that's going to be something really strong as he continues to draw through the deck here. Fusion Strike system will almost certainly be finding some item cards. This deck plays just so many of them. Ultra Ball is a great hit, as that will allow Lee to now search the deck for that Mew VMAX, and also discarding 2 supporters. He does have Pal Pad in hand too.
We haven't talked about it yet, but Avery might be a really solid card in this position. Not right now, of course, since Judge was played this turn, but down the line, shutting off the bench. Of course, you need a lot of bench Pokemon to draw more cards with Fusion Strike system, but finding the switching card, found the Ultra Ball for Mew VMAX, so that piece is there at least. I think the choice now for Lee. You got 3 great item cards in your hand. You've got access to this double Turbo Energy. You've got access to Pal Pad. It is actually going to be Pal Pad being played to bring back the Roxanne potentially, but I think Lee making a smart choice, not even bringing Roxanne back, because it's not going to do anything in this position.
Yeah, and Lee's kind of laughing about it in this spot, recognizing, yeah, you don't have to play into Roxanne at any point, so I'm not going to even worry about putting this card back in my deck. I don't want to draw into it. We'll just put back Judge, and that's going to be my best bet.
So still 2 more Fusion Strike systems to go. This one filling the hand up to 6, drawing 4 cards. Like you said, Path to the Peak would be a great find. Shutting off Fusion Strike system for both players, but more importantly, Andrew in combination with Judge. There is another Ultra Ball, does have the Lost Vacuum. Boss's orders for the following turn, as well as the Choice Belt. Now, how do you sequence this out? How do you keep things here? I feel like you don't really have great cards to discard with Ultra Ball. I guess you could discard the Vacuum and Boss, to keep the Cram around for one more system to try and give yourself a last-ditch effort to draw in. That seems like a play, potentially, but I mean, you want Lost Vacuum still, and I mean, you can't really afford to get rid of too many of these pieces, so it actually is going to be a really interesting play here.
I like this Cramomatic play. You flip heads, you can go get the Path and then draw 2 cards before you put it in play. You hold on to the Lost Vacuum for the next turn. Or if you flip tails, you get to draw 3 cards on this next Genesect. Lee might be considering just using Fusion Strike system. This last Genesect here can use it, just drawing for 1 card, see what he gets before going for the Cramomatic. But I think overall this is a solid play. Go for the flip. Let's see if he can get a heads. And sure enough, that 2 equals heads. Let's search the deck for any card, and I don't think either of us should be surprised to see that being Path.
Nope, Path to the Peak. Especially great when you've already got that Lost Vacuum in hand. Can now draw 2 additional cards with this last Fusion Strike system. Fill the hand up to 6. Already has Boss's orders in hand. Plenty of things to work with. We'll see if there's any extra treats or goodies that join the hand. It is 2 great item cards there.
So the 2 cards that he just discarded.
Coming back in a different
and
form.
Ultra Ball coming back once again. But it will be this Mew VMAX coming to the active spot. Cross Fusion Strike copies Technoblast for a pretty easy 1-hit KO. Lee does take the first 2 prizes, but this is effectively him tying the game up.
And a big find there for Andrew. Boss's orders, Ultra Ball, Cramomatic, a Pokemon to replace this. And then, as you said, of course, the important Lost Vacuum can get rid of this Path to the Peak, play the first copy of Boss's orders, fill the hand up to 6 here. An insane draw off of that. Yeah. I don't think you could have written that perfectly. Maybe add double turbo to this hand and you've got it all.
Yeah, maybe if this Ultra Ball is either double turbo or feather ball, that would be a little better, but overall this is fine. And honestly, maybe Ultra Ball is just better because you guarantee after you use Fusion Strike system, you'll be able to discard 2 of those cards that you draw into so you can continue to draw through the deck with even more Fusion Strike system. And I like this decision from Andrew, targeting down this Mew V with the Choice Belt, as that is going to be one of Lee's main ways to try to respond and get back into this. And what do you know, Ethan? Already double turbo being drawn. Ultra Ball guarantees the VMAX. We're going to see Andrew take 2 prizes here and go down to just needing 1 more KO to win the game. And it looks like this Ultra Ball is even going to just discard the 2 Path to the Peak. Normally such an important card in this mirror match. But given this situation, Andrew has very wisely adjusted, knows that it's not necessary for him to slow Lee down. He just needs to get through his deck, get rid of these cards he doesn't want to see anymore, and try to win the game on the next turn.
Did he have double turbo in hand? Does he already have that piece?
Yes, yeah, he drew the double turbo energy off that very first Fusion Strike system.
So perfect. Has double turbo energy, can find the Mew VMAX with the Ultra Ball. We've got updates from our other top 8 match as well. Calvin Connor, after a game loss before the set even started, wins 2-1 in his set, advancing to top 4 with Gardevoir.
Able to win both of those games, so he moves on to the top 4. Caleb Gettimer moving on to top 4, and Reagan Retzloff moving to the top 4.
What a stacked top 4 that is.
Absolutely, and either one of these players would be a welcome addition to it. Andrew Hedrick, though, being the one in the driver's seat currently, did draw Palpad here. Does he have supporters he wants to put back? I think all he wants through the rest of this game is Boss's orders. He's got one in hand, it looks like. Palpad putting back another one seems pretty good as well.
Boss going back into the deck. There's now essentially 3 Boss back in the deck, and now that it's being shuffled back in, you see how great and how versatile this card can be after you've played these supporter cards. And it's going to be this. Techno Blast copied with the Cross Fusion Strike attack, taking the knockout on Mew V, going down to essentially 2 prizes left, 1 knockout away from winning this game. How can Lee respond in this position? How can he keep himself in this game? The main issue as well is you can't play Boss and disrupt the hand in the same turn.
That is the big problem. Can't Judge and Boss. You know, the old versions of this DT Mew list played Cross Switcher. That's not something that's included here, not something we've seen for quite some time. Maybe Lee needs to try to make some magic happen with his Fan of Waves, but if we're remembering correctly, that's actually in the prize cards. So, man, this is really looking like an uphill battle for Lee, and flipping tails on Cramomatic does not make it any easier.
Does have the Boss's orders in hand. I feel like if you're not knocking this Mew out, all you're doing is sort of just delaying the clock another turn. You've got to progress your board, taking a knockout this turn some way, and maybe for Lee, it's having to play a Judge. To Judge back in. You see Andrew sort of a little confused that Boss is not getting played, because usually in this position, Boss always is used to bring up one of these bench Genesect, but Lee is somehow all in on maybe some sort of a power tablet play, right? If there's 4 modifiers and you play Judge to disrupt a little bit, that could maybe be what he's looking for.
Get through this active and then also play all those tablets. He has prized a tablet, and can't remember for sure if he already played one this game or not. So with a power tablet prized, it would involve him having Choice Belt and 3 power tablets this turn, plus the Judge. That is definitely his best bet. If he can pull that off, he's in a position where he could win the next turn if Andrew Hedrick whiffs. Of course, also, Lee would hope to combine this with a Path to the Peak.
Is actually going to get rid of the Lost Vacuum from his hand to make sure this first Genesect draws 6 cards. Does
There's
find
a tablet.
1 power tablet. Path to Peak, you can't play that yet.
2 tablets.
There's 2. So you could discard this Escape Rope. I mean, even Escape Rope is not bad. No, there's a VMAX on the
and
bench.
You got to get this energy out of play. That's the main problem. Get this energy out of play. Force Andrew to have as much as possible. If you play Escape Rope and knock out the benched VMAX that Andrew would assumedly send up, then all Andrew needs is a Boss's orders next turn, and he just used Palpad to bring one back.
I can't tell if he flipped heads or tails, if he's not looking through the deck yet. He put it out as a 6, but
I think he flipped heads and was just thinking through what he needs. Is there a tablet in the deck? There is a tablet and Choice Belt. Okay, this is Lee's line. Now he has to debate here what's better to take. He also wants to play Judge this turn. Does he take Judge now, or does he take one of these damage modifiers?
I mean, how many Judge are in the deck? I feel like you usually take the card you have less of. Of course, Judge does allow you to draw more cards.
Right, that's the thing,
I mean, if you take Power Tablet here, you could play the 3 Power Tablet, then use your second system for 4, and you have a good chance to find it. But let's just take a look and see how many are in the deck. I mean, there's 3 Judge. I feel like you always just take the Power Tablet here since you've got such good odds of drawing into Judge. But nope, it's going to be the 2 Power Tablet. Judge getting played. Big 4 cards here for Lee. Can fill the hand up to 6 with these last 2 Fusion Strike systems. Actually, 3 Fusion systems still available.
I think I like this Judge more the more I think about it, though, because you allow yourself to draw into cards that you can hopefully play, right? Thin more cards down, draw more cards. Playing the Judge before using another Fusion Strike system means that you're just going to potentially have access to more cards. Even though you had a lot of Judge in the deck, you're still potentially seeing more cards on this turn. So for Lee Bui here, what he needs is another tablet and a choice belt, and then also a path to the peak. If he can do that, that is really, really strong. He's going to draw 4 cards here and has 3 Genesect to work with. This is entirely possible, Ethan.
Very doable. If there's any time to pull off a miracle now, Lee, it's in top 8. When you're down a game, your back is against the wall. See if he can do it. Big 4 cards. Not what you want to see. I mean, okay.
One playable card.
And the Mew VMAX can't be played. Did the Mew come down this turn?
I think so, because Andrew took a knockout on a Mew V last turn, and all these Genesect were in play. So that also means that Double Turbo was attached this turn, so cannot even attach the Double Turbo that is in the hand currently.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get confirmation and make sure.
So it's only going to be 3 cards, and it's got to be a pretty specific combo of 3 cards. It could also be things like a. Let's also remember, Lee has not used his. Has not used his V-Star power just yet, so that is an option if there's a Force Sealstone grab. There is the Choice Belt. That can be 1 card played additionally.
I don't think it's retreated yet for turn. Doesn't really matter. Can go onto either one here, and it looks like confirmation that the Mew V was put into play last turn, so it did evolve. There is the Escape Rope.
Yeah, the problem with the Escape Rope means that you're not going to get rid of the energy card that Andrew has in play.
But I feel like you got to play it to maximize your draw. You've at least got to take prize cards this turn. I mean, Andrew's got plenty of ways to find Double Turbo. It's still, though, making it just a little bit easier for him to pull off his knockout.
But you don't even guarantee take prizes because Andrew can just send up the Mew VMAX. So just drawing 1 card, that's a judge. It's unplayable. So now he has to play this Escape Rope. Cross his fingers that Andrew, for some reason, sends up a Genesect. But no, Andrew's wise to any of Lee's potential tricks. Sends up the opposing Mew VMAX. This could be it. Lee needs to draw Power Tablet, and specifically Power Tablet, out of this deck to stand a chance in this game. It is Path to the Peak. Okay, this is not terrible, but not taking a knockout this turn is a big whiff.
Another extra turn for Andrew to navigate through this game to find the critical boss's orders to take a knockout. We will see Technoblast. 190 damage plus the double power tablet, so 250. If Andrew has boss's orders, he can bring up one of these bench Genesects. It's not there right away. What's the top deck for turn?
All he needs is boss. It is a judge as the draw for turn, and no way to remove this Path to the Peak.
Can play the Feather Ball out. Potentially grab another Mew VMAX. Put that into play. Prevent that as another option. If your opponent ever plays Escape Rope and you can put another Mew VMAX into play, that means you can bring up another fresh Pokemon and force your opponent. Well, now they have no way to one-shot take a one-hit knockout on the Mew VMAX. So I think this is a good play from Andrew to put this in.
Yeah, Andrew does not have to win the game this turn because Lee missed a knockout. The fact that Lee did not get a knockout means Andrew has another turn to try to work with here. I don't think he has enough damage modifiers to get through the active. Did burn a Power Tablet early. We know one was prized, and I think it is still in the prize card. So Andrew wisely just going to play the judge, and this is him knowing, okay, I cannot win the game this turn, but if I just hit this Mew VMAX, if my opponent retreats and attacks with the other Mew VMAX next turn, I have so many ways to win the game. Andrew could win the game with a boss's orders, like we mentioned. He could win the game even with an Escape Rope at that point, as everything in play would have enough damage on it that it would be able to be KO'd by a Cross Fusion Strike copying Technoblast.
Lots of flexibility, lots of time for Andrew. How can Lee pull himself back in and give himself a chance to advance the top 4? It feels like every turn that passes, more and more doors are shutting. Let's see what he drew into. Great hand. Yeah. Lost Vacuum to get rid of Path to Peak, even just has the boss's orders in hand.
I wonder if Andrew just holds the Vacuum here. He can't go for game this turn, so why not just hold the Vacuum? Make sure that's a resource you have available so that even if your opponent judges you, it's at least in your deck. You have options to try to bump that in the future turns and keep drawing cards. And very smart play.
Smart choice here, copying Max Miracle. You're getting a 2-hit knockout regardless of what order you do this in. Don't shut off your option to not attack next turn. It could spell trouble in some weird ways that Lee could cook up a win condition. It will just be the Max Miracle, 140 damage. Copying the benched Max Miracle, or Cross Fusion Strike copying the benched Max Miracle. What can you do here if you're Lee? No way to bump the path in this hand. Does have another judge that could be played. We could be spinning the wheel again.
I think Lee's play is pretty straightforward. He has to go for boss's orders. and he has to cross his fingers. He has to take a 2-prize KO this turn and just hope that Andrew doesn't have it. If he goes for Judge and just hits into this active Mew VMAX, that's not getting him anywhere. And because Andrew evolved the other Mew V into a clean Mew VMAX on the bench, that's something he could send up on an escape rope. Lee's only way to take 2 prizes this turn is by playing Boss's Orders. And he has to take 2 prizes if he wants to have a chance to win this game.
You got to take a risk to win it all. And there it is, Boss's Orders. I think this will always bring up Genesect V. There's no reason to not go after it. Leave the damage on the Mew VMAX. Take away 1 Fusion Strike system. And here Andrew, it is.
Yeah.
Copying Technoblast, taking the knockout. And Andrew has the Boss's Orders in hand, bringing up the Mew VMAX. Boss's Orders can target down any of these bench Pokemon. Andrew Hendrick winning 2-0, advancing into top 4 here at the Regional Championships in Cali.
Looking to become a 3-time regional winner. What a game, a 2-0 victory in this Mew mirror match. Congratulations as well to Lee for making it this far. The West Coast local, I know he's a hometown hero. He's got a lot of supporters out in the crowd. Could not quite get it done, but top 8 is an accomplishment he should still be very proud of. But Andrew Hedrick is looking to win his 3rd regional championships of the season, something only 2 other players have ever done in the history of the game.
An impressive feat for sure. He's still got a long road ahead of him as we now know our top 4 players. Reagan Retzloff, Calvin Connor, Caleb Gedimer, and Andrew Hendrick. This might be the most stacked top 4 of the season, and it comes at our last regional championship of the season. What a treat, what a treat.
4 players who are already in the top 16 of the U.S. right now, so an absolute treat. I mean, just 4 of the players who are at the absolute top of their game this year, 4 of the best in the entire world, and one of them is going to come away a regional champion. Will it be Cal Connor or Reagan Retzloff winning their 1st regional championships in the Masters division? Or will it be Andrew Hedrick winning his 3rd this season, or Caleb Gedimer getting his 4th victory overall?
So many great storylines. We've got younger players, older players, veterans of the game, people who've been playing for years and years in the younger divisions. That's what makes Pokemon so special. Everyone has their story on how they've gotten here to top 8 and now top 4. Only time will tell, Chip. Only time will tell.
And Caleb, let's also remember, coming off of getting 2nd place in Milwaukee last weekend, changed decks, is not playing the same deck he played just a week ago. Not very many players will choose to do that. They have great success at a tournament. Usually you'll see people roll up with the same deck. I mean, we've seen Reagan do that pretty much this entire format, right? Yep. He got 2nd place at that first regionals up in Portland with Lugia V-Star.